must have seen this FSSAI written over many food items, which actually gives uh, a okay sign to that this particular food is safe for consumption. Similarly, we have
Yeah,
certain other like oil industry
excuse
safety. Yes.
excuse me, Dr. Sethi. We can't see the PPT. I think we can't see the PPT slide.
I think to me it says that I'm sharing this. I would, so please check it there on the participants
No,
list.
slide, slide is not visible. On a screen, we can see only the attendees of this seminar.
I will do it again because to me it says that that I'm sharing. I'll just redo it. Actually, somebody else is sharing. It says Rani Yadav is presenting. Rani Yadav,
Yeah,
can you please stop
Rani Yadav.
that? Only if she will stop presenting, I'll be able to present. Is it visible now?
Yeah,
Should I start? Continue?
yeah, please.
Yeah. So I was talking about national regulatory agencies. So FSSAI, which talks about safety of food. We have Oil Industry Safety Directorate, which talks about the safety of workers who are working in oil and gas industries, and so on. We have DGMS, which works for mines and workers in the mines. Some uh, committees like DNA Advisory Committee. We have genetic engineering, which works for genetic material. They lay down certain standards which are for genetic material. So these are the national ones, and a few countable, commonly used international regulatory agencies are National Institute of Health (NIH), Center for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and Environmental Protection Agency. These agencies, these are all involved in the making standards and regulations for safety and related concerns. Now let's talk about some certain general safety measures. The points which we are going to discuss, some of these might seem very common and really general, but then I would say that these points, these measures, these needs to be mentioned, needs to be reiterated again and again because these might seem very common and simple, but we often miss them. We often forget them and take them very casually. But all these points which we are going to discuss now, they are very important and these should be mentioned to the students if it is a lab, the faculty in charge, the lab in charge, the lab instructors. All of those must keep on telling the students to follow these instructions. The first and the foremost thing is not say no to mobile phones. This is for each and everyone who is entering the lab, be it students, be it the teacher, be it lab technicians. Phone should not be used unless and until it is an emergency. And even in case of emergency, there should be a landline and intercom because the risk in that case is slightly lesser in comparison to phone, especially when you have some electrical labs or something like that. So a no to mobile phones. Then these are instructions. The first point I have written here is listen to or read the instructions carefully before attempting to do anything. So before going on to the further read points, further instructions, the first point, this is the important thing that all of you must listen and read the instructions carefully. And when you go to the lab, the instructions must be read and heard carefully. The first important thing is that you must dress appropriately. No bulky clothes, as you can see in the image. Also, I've shown that such clothes they are not allowed in the lab, and bulky as well as short dresses should not be allowed. There should always be a lab coat or an apron, which should be mandatory once you enter the lab. Long hair, they should always be tied back. There should not be any eating, drinking, or smoking allowed in the labs. One must not throw anything around in the lab. Wearing of safety goggles when you're working with flame, heated liquids, or glassware. Safety goggles and gloves, lab coat, and safety shoes, these are all part of PPE, that is personal protective equipment. When I say safety goggles, it's the safety goggles which are to be used when you're working with flames, heated liquids, or glassware. Then you also have to decide and choose the appropriate goggles, because there are splash goggles as well, there are laser goggles as well. So depending on the work which you are doing, you need to choose a particular goggles. The same thing goes with the gloves. There are different types of gloves you see. There are latex gloves, there are nylon gloves, there are anti-cut glove. So the depending on the work, you may wisely choose the type of gloves, wisely choose the goggles which you must be using. Then the next point, if you see in the image, there is a severely cluttered desk, which is a big no. Make sure that the work area is clean and is free from any books or any material which is not needed. If any student in the lab wish to try an alternate procedure, then the student must be advised that not to try unless and until the student has obtained the approval.
हाँ मैम
Then you must not be touching anything which is hot without proper tongs or proper handling material. For electric circuits, be sure to turn off the electricity before making any adjustments or anything. If there is any accident or injury, then that should immediately be reported. Everybody in the lab must be well aware of the safety measures. The first and foremost thing, the fire extinguishers, fire blankets, and the nearest exits. Uh, After handling the chemicals, one must always wash hands with soap and water. During the lab work, you must keep your hands away from the face. This is an important thing. Keep your hands away from your face. This is something we have been hearing these days because of COVID as well. Keeping your hands away from face is always important, whether you're working in the lab or uh, you're anywhere, especially in this special pandemic situation of COVID. So once you're done with your work, don't forget to check for water and gases that you had used, if they are turned off or not. And you must return all your materials to the designated places and leave the work area clean. Just excuse me, I can hear a lot of noise. Can you please mute your mics? That would be
Ma'am,
really.
slide is again not visible actually.
There is somebody else who is presenting. I think that is the problem. TCC TFU is presenting, and so I'm not able to. Maybe that's why the slides are not visible. Can you please stop presenting? Somebody TCC TFU is presenting. Unless and until you stop presenting, I won't be able to. TCC TFU.
Hello. Yeah. So could you please TCC-TFU, please stop your PPT. Otherwise, it is difficult for the resource person to present.
I think that is the reason my slides are not visible, even though they are being presented.
Ma'am, on your presenting icon, it can be pinned, then nothing will come.
What? Sorry? What did you say?
The icon where you're presenting, that can be pinned to the screen, so nothing else will come then. There is an option to pin the screen.
When I'm presenting?
Yes, ma'am. But we can do. Whoever is attending this, they can go to the icon where you're presenting and they can pin your presentation. Then it will
Okay.
print the,
So
yes.
I did.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you see?
No,
Can you
can
see,
you
sir, now the presentation?
Can you see the presentation now?
Sir, I can see. I think everybody should pin the presentation.
Okay, so everyone has to pin the
Yes,
presentation.
ma'am.
Okay,
Done.
I hope
right.
it's fine now. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Uh, after these general instructions, this is a RAMP concept for scientific safety. RAMP, this is a term which was coined by Dr. Robert Hill and David in one of their books. RAMP stands for R is recognize the hazards, A is assess the risk of hazards, M stands for minimizing the risk of hazards, and P preparation for emergencies from uncontrolled hazards. So we are going to discuss these R, A, and P one by one, and starting with RAMP, recognize the hazards. Before recognizing the hazards, one must be clear, one must understand what actually is hazard and what is risk. Most of the time, we tend to use these terms interchangeably. What is hazard? Hazard is actually any source of potential damage or harm to an individual's health, whereas risk is the probability of person being harmed. A very suitable example I would cite here. For example, a wet floor, that is a hazard, whereas a person getting slipped and getting hurt is the probability of getting hurt, which is a risk. So wet floor is a hazard, whereas getting hurt is the risk. So when you minimize the hazard, then definitely you can reduce the chances of getting hurt, then you can definitely reduce the risk. So the first and foremost thing to be done is to recognize the hazard, which is the first word RAM. R stands for recognize the hazard. So what kind of hazards we generally come across when we are working in the laboratories? Chemical hazards like corrosive chemicals, flammable chemicals, health hazards, toxic substances, chronic substances, laser exposure. By corrosive chemicals, for example, I mean the acids and bases which can be hazardous, which can burn your skin. There can be flammable chemicals, for example, ethanol. Similarly, health hazards, toxic substances, which are which are which can pose a threat to your health, which respiratory system or anything. Laser exposure, which is a hazard for your eyes. Physical hazards can be incompatible chemicals. By incompatible chemicals, I mean that certain chemicals which are not suitable to be kept together, if they are mixed together, then that can pose a threat, that can pose a hazard. We generally don't do that, but this sometimes happens while handling, while transporting, and most of the times while decomposing or disposing the waste. So it happens that the chemicals which are incompatible with each other, we tend to throw them in the same container, which can cause a violent reaction or something like that. So that should be recognized, that we should be aware of. Then compressed gases and high pressure systems, electrical hazards, radiation hazards, cryogenic hazards. These are the physical hazards. Some of these we will further in the further slides we will be discussing. Reaction hazard like catalyst effects on reactions. For example, a reaction is going on and we add a catalyst. A catalyst is something which tends to increase the rate of the reaction. So we must be aware, we must recognize that the catalyst we are going to add, to what extent is it going to affect the rate of the reaction. So because a catalyst, it will increase the rate of the reaction. So it should not be that there is a sudden or excessive uh, increase in the rate of the reaction and it becomes uncontrollable. So these are the hazards which one must recognize while you enter the lab. Then we talk about some globally harmonized system, that is GHS, which has given the systems, which has given the symbol, which you must have seen on the packagings of certain chemicals or certain chemicals which are used. These symbols, they
Yeah,
help us.
Dr. Yeah, Dr. Sethi.
Yes, sir.
Just a second. I think a lot of people are not able to see the PPT.
So, so I would suggest you please in the list go on my name and in the my name and in the brackets is written presentation. So if you pin
Okay,
on
and
that,
there,
there you see three symbols on my name. It's one is like a pin symbol, then a mute symbol, and the third. So if you click on that pin symbol, then you will be able to see the slides. I hope. Shamita ma'am, can you please type this in the chat window as well?
yeah,
That how can it be pinned?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
yeah, Dr. Sethi, please go on.
So I was talking about this GHS symbol, which becomes which becomes really easy to understand and to remember rather than reading. If you know and recognize the symbol, it becomes easy for you to understand what particular chemical you are going to handle. So these symbols should always be in your head. You should always remember the symbols. Like we have symbol for an explosive, which shows a explosion thing. Then we have a fire, which is a symbol for flammable things. We have a test tube and hands, which is a symbol for corrosive substances. Fire over a circle, which is a symbol for oxidizing substances, oxidizing gases, liquids, and solids. A cylinder, which represents compressed gas. So knowing these symbols can help you identify the hazard. You must remember these symbols. A skull that represents a toxic substance, an exclamation sign represents an irritant, and so on. So this is a GHS symbol, which is globally uh, used, and all the manufacturers, distributors, they tend to use these symbols on their substances. Then besides this, we also have this NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association. National Fire Protection Association also developed a hazard identification system for emergency responders. So NFPA symbols as well as GHS symbols, they both are used. This is how a NFPA hazard identification symbol looks like. Now this consists of four different color diamonds, and each color represents the type of hazard. For example, the blue one represents health hazard, the red one represents the flash point, the yellow, the fire hazard, the yellow one represents the reactivity, and white diamond represents special hazard. So in this case, they put on some numbering in these boxes, in these diamonds. When there is a number 4, that represents that it is a deadly health hazard. Suppose there is a number 3 in the red diamond, then that represents that this particular substance that has a flash point of 100 Fahrenheit. So this is the table which is given below, which can help us in identifying the hazards which are associated with that particular substance. Excuse me, I would still say please keep your mics mute. There is a lot of disturbance which I can still hear. Okay, so and in this white diamond, there would be something written which can be an acid, ALK, COR, OXY, can be a radioactive symbol, and use of no. So these two symbols, GHS, with these symbols in combination with the symbols given by NFPA, they both are used globally. However, there is an important point which I would like to mention here, that GHS hazard symbols, they have categories numbered from 1 to 5. When it says 1, that means that the severity is maximum, whereas it is opposite in case of NFPA rating system. In case of NFPA rating system, the most dangerous will have the maximum rating. So this needs to be kept in mind when you are reading these symbols. That I'll reiterate, I'll tell again that in case of GHS, the lowest numbering represents the greatest risk, whereas in case of NFPA, the greatest number means the greatest risk. Then let's talk about fire, because we are talking about this National Fire Protection Association. So NFPA also gave a classification of fires. Fire is one of the most common hazard which needs to be recognized. There are different classes of fires which are given the names A, B, C, D, K, depending on the fire which is involving. If it is normal combustibles, general combustibles like wood, then it's A. If it is flammable liquids, then it's B. If they are electrical combustibles, then it's C. So depending on the type of fire, uh, the fire extinguishers are designed like that. If you have ever noticed that the fire extinguishers, they have written over them A, B, C, or only B, or it's B and C. So this A, B, C actually represents that this particular fire extinguisher, this can be used for this class of fire. So this is the list. Dry chemical extinguisher, it says ABC, so it can be used for these three classes of fires, and so on. Now, if there is a fire extinguisher, you must also know how to use a fire extinguisher. To use a fire extinguisher, this is, I have written here an acronym PASS, which stands for pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. So pull means that you have to pull the pin on the extinguisher. You have to aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. Be aware that you have to aim the nozzle at base of the fire and not on the fire. The base is important thing. Then you squeeze the trigger to release the product, and then you sweep the nozzle across from side to side so that the fire is extinguished. Then recognizing the hazard also includes reading the safety data sheets. For each and every substance, there is a SDS, which is provided by the manufacturer, distributor, and importer. It is really important that you go through all these sheets, and there should be a manual, a file which notes all these, which has all these SDS. So SDS has different sections. You must be aware of these sections, what these sections have in them before using a particular chemical. I would say that always remember that the first aid section is the section 4. So just in case you forget to read SDS and there is an emergency, then you should know that you have to directly go to section 4 so as to go through the uh, first aid measures. Then these are some of the important terms which are generally used in SDS, which are generally used when you talk about safety, like an allergen, that is something which causes allergy, an asphyxiant, which causes lack of oxygen, autoignition temperature, above which a substance will spontaneously ignite, carcinogen, that is something which is causing cancer, corrosive, that is a substance which can cause damage to your living tissue, and exposure is a term which is used very commonly, that exposure to the skin, that is when you come in direct contact with the hazard. Phytotoxicant, a substance that enters the maternal placental circulation and can cause injury to the fetus. Flash point is the temperature at which a liquid or solid can produce vapor sufficient to form ignitable mixture. Then runaway reactions, which is an event in which the rate of the reaction significantly increases. Tetrogen is an agent that causes non-inheritable genetic mutations, and toxic is any substance that has capacity to produce personal injury. So these are the general terms which you must know, because these are the terms which are used very commonly. Recognizing the hazards, some of the common lab hazards, these are chemicals, acids and bases, biological agents, compressed gases, corrosives, cryogenics, electrical hazards, flammables, mercury, broken and cracked glasses. So these all are common lab hazards. Now let's move on to A of the word RAM, which means assess the risk of hazards. Assessing the risk means you determine the probability of occurring. So as to determine the probability, you must determine the scope of the project or the experiment you're going to conduct. You must identify the substances and the processes which will be involved in that particular experiment. And Once you identify the substances, you must determine the potential hazard, and that you can do by reading out the SDS. And then you must evaluate the level of risk. By that, you will be able to know whether this is worth doing or not, whether you have the conditions available where you can go ahead with this or not. Then next you do is you determine the actions and controls as I mentioned, and then finally you monitor and review. Then next is minimize the risk. So once you recognize, once you assess, then you must work towards minimizing the risk, which can be done. I have divided this in 3 headings: that before the experiment, what you should be doing, that you make a list of the chemicals. When you're using a chemical, you please use appropriate containers. One very important thing which I would add here is that when you're transferring a chemical from a primary container to secondary container, please do not forget to label that secondary container. If you know that this particular chemical is hazardous, has severe implications, so please do not also add some DHS symbol on the secondary container as well. Then during the experiment, safety considerations in the use of chemicals are to be taken care of. Proper PPE should be used, personal protective equipment, emergency procedures, they must be known. There must be a proper method of disposal of excess reagent. And after the experiment, the unused chemicals, they must be returned properly. They must, the glassware, everything should be kept back in the proper position. So all these things, what they are going to do is they are going to minimize the risk for the person who is working in the lab, and also for the person who is going to be the next working person in the lab. So these are the points which should be done. And the last letter is P, which is preparation for emergencies from uncontrolled hazard. So despite this RAM thing, even if there are certain emergencies, one must be prepared for all these. One must be prepared for these hazards and emergencies. The emergency equipment that must be there should be a plumb dye wash, should be a safety shower. Then there should be an anti-splash goggles, chemical and flame-resistant laboratory aprons, first aid kit, broken glass disposal container, and fire blankets. Then there should be exit and emergency drills. One must be aware of emergency exits. The organization must conduct emergency drills time to time so as to demonstrate the emergency situations, how to be handled. Then we talk about primary barriers. Barriers means how we are prevented from hazards. The primary barriers, and there are secondary barriers. Primary barriers like fume hood and biological safety cabinet. In case of fume hood, that is something which functions for exhaustion of vapors and gases that are generated. So some of the points which needs to be taken care is that even if you're working in a fume hood, then you should be prepared with your PPE. It's not that if you're working in the fume hood, then you can ignore wearing your personal protective equipment. Similarly, when we talk about biological safety cabinets, then these are used for containment for infectious agents, biological agents. And the same thing that there should be proper decontamination of the cabinet before and after the use, and there should be proper disposal. So before you're going to use this safety cabinet, then you must turn it on, and then you should wait for at least 5 to 10 minutes before you start working. So these are some of these safety measures which should be taken so as to properly use these primary safety barriers. Similarly, we have secondary safety barriers, which are the facility design. For example, the laboratories, they must be away from the classrooms and must have limited access. So this is something which will reduce, minimize, and prevent hazards. If there is limited access and laboratories are far away from the classrooms, then this will minimize the risk, minimize the hazards. Similarly, another point like hand washing facilities in the lab, that should not be accessible to somebody who's outside the lab. So these are some of the postulates, some of the points, some of the protocols which needs to be followed so as to prevent hazards. Now we talk about certain safety tips. Safety tips related to glassware safety, like chipped or cracked glassware should not be used, and an important thing that a hot glassware should not be put in water because rapid cooling makes it shatter. So when pouring liquids into the glassware, make sure the containers you're pouring, they are resting on the table and at least a hand's breadth away from the edge, because it generally happens that when you pour in some liquid, if it's on the edge, then because of the weight of the liquid which you're adding, the glassware may fall off. So you need to take care of this. Then we talk about electrical safety. Wearing proper shoes is a very important thing. That is, they should be non-conducting, and if you're using a ladder, for example, then choosing a proper ladder is important. It should be a wooden or a fiber ladder so that there is no conduction of current. Uh, then next we talk about chemical safety. Most of it we have already discussed, that one should not touch it, must not mix the chemicals, must always wear gloves and must wash the hands. Now we talk about cryogenic safety. Cryogens are the substances which are kept at very low temperature. So when something that is at very low, by very low I mean in minus temperatures, for example, liquid nitrogen. So these cryogens, they can cause damages. They are hazardous because of their extreme cold temperature. It can lead to oxygen enrichment, fire hazards, explosions, as well as metal embrittlement. So while using a cryogenic substance, there are very important things to be taken care of. For example, one must be trained and qualified before handling, transporting these liquefied gases. Overfilling of cryogenic containers is prohibited, and the system vents must be directed away from the personal or designated work areas. Then heating safety, this also we had discussed that when you're touching a hot substance, make sure that you're using a proper tong or a proper object for carrying that. Then laser safety, laser is most dangerous for your eyes, so make sure that you're wearing proper glasses. Curtains and shields are properly in places, and one must be ensured that when some experiment is going on, there are no disturbances and the caution sign outside the lab is on, so that not just anyone can enter the lab. Then animal and plant safety. Animals and plants, they both must be handled carefully and with the teacher's permission. Just in case you have some plant allergy or some other allergies, then you must inform your uh, the lab in charge or teacher. And very important thing, that please do not try to eat any plant in the lab, because some plants, for example tulsi, even if you know this is tulsi, even if you know that it's not going to harm you, please do not try to attempt to taste it. The reason is, when it is in the lab, it is not as it was there on the plant. So be careful, that handle animal and plants, both of them, just like any chemicals. But when I talk about animals, then you should be human as well. So now let's talk about first aids. Quick first aid. The first is the burns. When there is burn, then immediately flush with cold water. If it's severe, then the first aid would be for washing with water, flushing with water, and then you may contact the medical practitioner. Then if you have cuts and bruises, please do not touch them without the safety glove, because that can cause some infection. There should be applied a cold press to reduce swelling and bleeding. If there is some injury to the eyes, then flush with water. To this, I would like to add, there are some chemicals, for example, sodium. If that goes into your eyes, then you must be very careful to not to use water, because sodium is something that reacts with water. So most of the times, water is the first aid for some chemical or something in the eye. But one needs to be aware. That is why reading SDS is very important before using any chemical. Then first aid for electric shocks and fainting. when there is an electric shock to somebody, when somebody is electrocuted, please do not touch that person. This is an important thing. So as to save that person, one tends to pull that person back. This is not allowed. Make sure that you use something, some insulator. You turn off the power and then you remove that person from that particular electric wire or something. Then provide fresh air, and if the person becomes unconscious, then try artificial respiration. In the end, I would say that students must be told to stay at their workstation. They must maintain clean work area. They must read and follow all the instructions. They must report any spill or accidents. They must clean and put away all the equipments at the end of the lab period to the designated positions. They must dispose of waste products as per the instructions given. And remember that lab safety is important for everyone in the lab. And thank you. And that's from my side.
Hello. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sonika Sethi, for such a nice and wonderful talk. And hope it will be very much helpful, informative for all our attendees. And now I would like to attendees, if you have any question. So I guess Dr. Dhankar, can you hear me? Dr. Dhankar, Dr. Kamble, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Is there any question from the attendees?
So there are no questions till now.
Because the talk was very good.
So
Talk is very good.
Yeah, talk was very good. Talk was very nice.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Dhankar,
So I think she has some network issues. I'll call her.
okay. So otherwise, I also won't see any question here in the chat bar.
Yes, sir.
So, but if you have any more suggestion, you can please share. Dr. Kamble, you are also experimenter. So if you think something is left, you can just.
No, sir. I just wrote one thing that that the people who are working in laboratories includes the lab in charges, the students. Most of them are not aware of the chemicals or the fumes that they are sensitive to.
Right.
And therefore, before starting the work in any lab, they must get themselves tested for various allergens that they might encounter in this laboratories.
Exactly.
It's very much essential.
Absolutely
Right,
correct.
Yes. And most of the times when we know that some of the fumes, they are harmful, then it is always recommended that a fume would be used. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so that is like a point which needs to be remembered.
Right. And you know, most of the time what I observed across the world in the laboratories, there are instructions written very clearly, pasted on the wall, on the notice board. But the people working inside and a student, they won't read it carefully. So that is the one biggest problem I have encountered, I observed. So I think for all the attendees, my recommendation is, especially for the lab assistant who are working, who are actually round the clock encountering everything over there. So lab attendants, assistants, and students who are working there, they should read very carefully the instruction pasted on the wall or on the notice board and implement it. And be careful, because you are dealing with the chemicals, you are dealing with the various kind of hazardous materials that was already discussed by Dr. Sethi. So these are really very much dangerous. It's for your health, and sometimes it is life-threatening as well, you know.
Right.
So we have to be very much careful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah.
Right, sir.
Hello.
So Dr. Dhankar has some questions.
Yeah, please, Dr. Dhankar.
I'm really sorry. Actually, I was getting some network issues in between.
Okay, no need to sorry. Please go on.
Hello, Dr.
Ji,
Sethi.
ji.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hanji, ma'am, please could you elaborate what will be the correct procedure for students or lab technician to follow if a chemical is split?
Ma'am, I would say that there are proper chemical spill procedures which needs to be taken care when there is a spill. For example, in an event of a chemical spill, the first and important thing is to know whether the spill is going to cause some fumes or not. So, for example, if there is something which is causing fumes, then the first thing would be to evacuate that place, and then there should be proper cleaning, and that would again depend on the type of the chemical. There is a proper list of the steps which have been given by Environmental Health Safety EHS, which is a procedure for chemical spills in the lab.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Ma'am, I have another query.
Dr. Dhankar.
Yeah, sir, I have another query, please. So I want
Yeah,
to.
so I just wanted to, okay, just you go on and then I will reply. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, what type of gloves are to be worn in a laboratory?
Ma'am, I said that there are different types of gloves which are meant for different purposes. For example, there are latex gloves which are to be worn when you're working with when you're working with chemicals like acids and bases. Then there are nitrile gloves. Then there are gloves like what you call them, anti-cut gloves. So these are the gloves which different types of gloves which are meant for different works. It's not that any glove can be used for every work. So if there is anything specific, then one must go through the types of gloves. Similarly, I mentioned about glasses, that the glasses are also specific for particular experiment or work you are doing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So-
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
How would
good.
say you were adding something to this?
Yeah, actually, she asked about the chemicals, how to handle the chemicals. So there, I can add just some of my experience dealing with the corrosive chemicals like HF, hydrogen fluoride. So, usually the students should not be allowed to use very much highly corrosive chemicals in the lab, such as hydrogen fluoride. Just one drop of hydrogen fluoride can reduce all your body salt, and it will cause, somehow the death. And therefore, one has to be very much careful, and it should be handled only by the trained technicians who have, well trained to deal with such kind of the corrosives. So that is my suggestion, not to allow students to deal with the corrosive chemicals. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked, Karishma, can you please tell me about cure of blisters? Karishma, for this I would say that, see, blisters generally we get by burning. So if there is a burn, then I has mentioned that the first aid is to wash with water, and if there is a blister, then that is to be first cleaned, and then iodine can be used for cleaning it on the swab. Then the blister needs to be pricked, punctured with a sterilized needle, which can be sterilized with rubbing alcohol, and then any ointment like petroleum jelly can be applied on the blister, and then it can be covered with a bandage or gauze. That is how you work with blisters in labs. I hope I have answered your question well.
Yeah. Miss Karishma, can you hear us? Okay, no problem.
Yes, so she
And-
replied yes.
Okay, good. So, anyone else? Dr. Dhankar, anyone else has a question? No. Dr. Kamble? So if not, then I would like
Hello.
yeah. So is
One of attendee, he is requesting for the presentation of if ma'am want to share her presentation with him. He is very curious.
Good morning, sir.
okay. Yeah,
Sir,
very good morning.
Sir, Neeraj here. Sir, Neeraj
Great.
Kumar Singh here.
G.
Sir,
No.
some safety ideas of radiation.
Right. So you want to know.
Yes,
You
sir.
want to share your thought with us, or you want to know from Dr. Sethi about the
Sir, note about Dr. Sethi, ma'am.
Okay, so see, radiation, I had shared one slide also about the radiation safety. The one and the most important thing is that you must, first thing is you must minimize the, am I audible? I can hear my two voices.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can hear you.
So one must try to reduce the time one is working with the radioactive material which is radiating. One must be mindful of the distance from the source of the radiation. PPE again is very important, especially for your eyes and radiations. Neeraj, would you please specify what kind of radiations are you talking about?
And
Mr. Neeraj?
some radioactive experiment in our lab.
Right, for radioactive substances, right?
Yeah.
So, so the most important thing is that you reduce the timings of the working in the with the radiations, because these can cause some genetic disorders as well. Then the other thing you can do is uh, there is a proper shielding which needs to be done when you're working with radiations. Then if there is some contamination, that should be done, because once you're done using this radioactive substance, then proper contamination, because some of the radioactive substances, once you're done with the study, then they are emitting radiation, so there should be proper disposal, whether you are disposing them in the ground. So proper depth of the drilling, the amount of drill which is done, that should be as per the norms of the uh, given by the uh, regulatory agencies. So disposing is again a very important thing. And besides this, I would say, Thakur sir, would you please give your some inputs
No,
on this?
you are right. I think for the time being, it is more than enough. So one can learn while working with the system. G.
Right. Disposing a chemical substance is radioactive, that is the most important thing.
Right.
Can I
Okay.
add one thing into this?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, you can, please.
Yeah, if possible, a radioactive isotope needs to be handled in a separate room altogether,
Right.
if possible.
Right. Yeah,
But if not
sure.
possible, then you can choose a shielding method,
Right.
Yeah.
as Dr. Sonika suggested.
And shield is definitely a very important thing when you're working with radiations.
Okay, great. So I think that's all. We are already exceeded the time limit. So once again, I would like to extend my thanks to the speaker, Dr. Sonika Sethi, for your wonderful presentation, and of course, rectification of various questions. Very peacefully, carefully, you have explained the various aspects. And also, I would like to extend my thanks to all the participants who have joined this very useful session, and your questions, of course, that help us to improve, and your suggestions, and of course, your patience to be with us. Thank you so much once again. Take very good care of yourself. Have a nice and
Thank you
wonderful
so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a
Thank you,
very nice
everyone.
talk. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.